everybody, and welcome to Inclusively with Chris Lewis and Monica Paolini, that is me. And we are talking today about standardization and specifically standardization of ETSI and how is that helping people with disabilities. And Chris, why don't you tell us what we're going to be talking about today?
Well, thank you very much, Monica. Love to be back again. The challenge of standards keeps coming up because the more interchangeable parts that we see in our digital lifestyles, we just expect things to work, but behind things working, obviously we need standards. So delighted, Ulrike, for you to join us. Perhaps to begin with, can you perhaps just tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us how you got involved with accessibility and ETSI, because you actually your job is for Sony. So can you explain that positioning for us?
Yes, so thank you for inviting me to this podcast, Chris and Monica. Yes, I'll start with my short introduction. So I'm a senior manager at Sony Europe, based in Germany, and I work for the European Technology Standards Office of Sony. I joined Sony in 1996 already, so I have a long history actually in standardization and held multiple roles in Sony related to business development and also standardization. I worked in many different standardization projects across Europe and was also one of the founders of the Digital Europe e-Inclusion Working Group, which is the European Industry Association based in Brussels. And then more recently, I was elected as chair of the ETSI Human Factors Technical Committee. That is the ETSI group that deals with human-centered design, usability, accessibility, and design for all. So, and there we're responsible for guiding standards and guidelines that ensure ICT products and services are usable and accessible to all, including people with disabilities, seniors, and children. So, and beyond ETSI, actually, I'm also heavily involved in international standardization bodies for audio, video, and multimedia, and I'm chair of IEC Technical Committee 100 for multimedia and audio, video systems and equipment. And also in the past, I chaired a group in IEC called the System Committee AAL, Active Assisted Living, which aims to make technology accessible and usable for people with special needs or age-related limitations. So this is how I came actually, or how I work in this area now for many years. And I'm happy to answer your questions today.
Yes. So, well, this is very impressive. Like I was like, oh my God, you just got so much going on. Now, let's just talk about a little bit about ETSI. And oftentimes, when you think about standards, you think about just making, a technology possible. But clearly, there is also the standards are also important for society to help us to give us better accessibility. So can you tell us a little bit about how is ETSI involved in this?
Mm-hmm. Yes, certainly. So ETSI, this is the European Telecommunications Standards Institute based in Sofia Antipolis, France. And this is one of the world's major organizations that develop technical standards for information and communication technologies. ETSI is one of the 3 European standards organizations in the European Union, alongside with CEN and CENELEC. And ETSI creates standards in mobile communications. So you know the long history of GSM, LTE, 5G, 6G as examples. They work on internet technologies, cybersecurity, broadcasting standards, and also accessibility and human factors standards. And and this is also recognized as very, very important in ETSI, as 15% of the population face challenges with disability or accessibility needs. And this is also why standards are so important for society in order to make devices, networks, and services developed by different companies able to communicate and interoperate together. So without standards, very easy example, a smartphone might not connect to a mobile network, or a TV might not decode broadcast signals correctly. And this is why accessibility also is one of the areas where standards make the biggest social impact, because without them, accessibility is often inconsistent or overlooked. And we need to make the accessibility requirements clear and give companies clear guidance on what to implement, and provide benchmarks also for testing and compliance, which is quite important, especially in the framework of the new European Accessibility Act. And in this area, we are in the process of developing a very important standard, EN 31549. That is a European standard for ICT accessibility. And this one tells exactly how manufacturers need to ensure that software, hardware, and services are accessible. So it's also important that accessibility is built in from the start in products and services, and not added at a later stage. This leads to products that work for more people, and also reduces cost because no need for costly retrofitting.
So, Ulrike, how does ETSI ensure the accessibility and inclusion for all of its operations?
Good question. So ETSI actually designs internal processes, but also the environment, the built environment, and also events to be accessible to everybody. So, for example, under the accessibility strategy of ETSI, one project focuses on already ETSI published documents, and has a goal really to make all deliverables available in accessible formats suitable for people with a range of needs. And also ETSI has developed formal guidelines now for hosting accessible meetings, whether at ETSI premises or at also member venues or public venues. And has developed, so to say, or included there also some baseline requirements to make the buildings physically accessible to people. And also in the guidelines, look at the accessibility of content and interaction. So examples here that captioning can be provided, maybe also sign language interpretation can be provided. And also we provide in the registration tools actually also questions where people can say what type of accessibility needs they have for hybrid or online meetings. And this is currently the way ETSI tries to make also their buildings accessible, but not only buildings, but also the remote meetings. We We have many online meetings, you can imagine. And also in terms of diversity, maybe you should know that ETSI employs people from 25 different nationalities. So this is also part of the wider diversity initiative of ETSI.
So Ulrike, this is quite interesting, but can you tell us a little bit more about how does ETSI promote accessibility and inclusiveness in standardization?
Yes. As explained, ETSI is one of the 3 European standardization organizations alongside with CEN and CENELEC. However, ETSI's participation model is a bit different. It's a direct participation model. So that means that organizations and companies and not national delegations can contribute directly to the technical work. Yeah, it is a member-funded organization for SMEs and also micro enterprises. It has a reduced cost to access and become member. Also for public research bodies, universities, associations, and national bodies and governmental bodies. So it's a good entry point for SMEs, also for consumers and regional actors. And it's, as I said, a direct participation model. Currently, it has over 900 members and more than 60 country members from more than 60 countries, including also public authorities, private companies, academia, research bodies, public bodies, and open source communities. So the focus of the work is on telecommunications, broadcasting, and electronic communication services, and ICT in general. What is also very unique to ETSI that access to the developed standards is free. So there's no financial barrier. So everybody can download the final standard. And this obviously also enables a widespread use of them. The EN 301549, this is the, so to say, flagship standard for ICT accessibility. And it defines really detailed accessibility requirements. And here I can give you a couple of examples. So the requirements include requirements for software and websites, mobile apps, ICT hardware, telecommunications equipment, and video or TV user interfaces, and also self-service terminals. So also they're having a dedicated human factors committee, which I share. They produce accessibility-focused standards, and the idea is really to embed accessibility into mainstream ICT products and services. And then, obviously, one of the biggest or bigger targets of ETSI is also to educate the standardization community. And this is particularly relevant also because it's the standards work is closely aligned with the EU legislation. So the Web Accessibility Directive, the European Accessibility Act, and therefore let's say the work or the free access to those standards, also ensuring companies can in their declaration of conformity reference those standards is the way basically ETSI works and promotes their standards.
So thank you for covering that, because obviously the immediate question is how the standard you're defining and then the Accessibility Act, which obviously only came into light properly in mid of this year. But can you also perhaps, given the many chairmanship hats that you wear, can you put it in context as to how the 30159 standard actually relates outside of Europe?
Yes, outside of Europe, we have now several countries actually looking into the adoption of 30159, and countries already which have adopted a version actually of EN 30159 are Canada, and also in some Australian states. The standard is used for ICT procurement, so particularly by public sector buyers. And then also we have a reference or benchmark globally. There is a link which I'd like to share maybe after after the interview, where you can also see which organizations have adopted EN 301, and these are all global players. And I think this is also helpful to see how the EN is globally adopted and implemented.
So let's go back to Europe. I mean, there is 24 different countries. Is that right? How do you balance them all? I'm sure everybody has his own opinion. What are the challenges in getting everybody kind of on the same track?
The accessibility needs of people do not vary across countries. Yeah, so they're the same all over the world. So obviously, we have a regulation in Europe, the European Accessibility Act, and we have 24 countries which have national transpositions. Yeah, and sometimes as the transpositions are a little bit divergent from the European Accessibility Act, but within the framework, we have basically one regulation which covers all European countries, and all countries have also transposed into their national laws the European Accessibility Act. So, for example, Germany, they have transposed the EAA in 2 different laws. Yeah, so this is quite complicated, and also other countries have transposed sometimes in 2 or 3 laws. So they have split, but overall, we see that the transpositions took place, and now currently we also see that the interpretations are consistent across the countries, and we work on the finalization of the EN 30159, also also with the national committees, European national committees, organized under CEN and CENELEC. So this is currently work ongoing. But we also have to see other challenges. These are 2 more standards, basically, which are relevant for industry. And the one is on a non-digital information related to products and services. And this area, as I said, is very relevant for companies. And we see that the standards are currently only at working draft stage. So still we need time to finalize and make them available. And as you know, the European Accessibility Act was already enforced in June this year, but still we don't have all the standards in place to show conformance. And then,
please carry on.
Yeah, and then we have another standard which is related to support services. Also, this standard is only available as a working draft, and still, we require much more time in CEN and CENELEC to finalize the standard. So, sorry.
It's very interesting. I do some work with an application called Be My Eyes. And my assumption, being a technology telecom guy, was that we would do everything digitally. We'll be all through one interface through one website. But in fact, we're beginning to find that we perhaps need, in the case of vision impaired in particular, that we actually need to have slightly different views. And this is where a specific application actually routes people through to support to a telco or to a retail outlet or to someone else, rather than going through the standard approach, which is sort of a bad thing against the way the existing websites and structures are designed. But actually, we have to be practical as well. So I'm very, very curious to see how that develops over the coming months. And Ulrike, perhaps one other question around the European Accessibility Act. What advice would you give to companies preparing to conform to the Act? Is there any practical advice you can give to them?
Yes, so it's advice or recommendations I would give is try to go beyond the minimum requirements set out in the standards. So as you know, standard is always a balance between different interest groups, and we need to define some common understanding. But obviously, a company which wants to differentiate can go beyond those requirements and add new accessibility features to their products and services. What I also find very important, that internally in the organization, we need to secure the leadership and support and resources over time also, that we not only implement now, but we improve over time and also have control mechanisms over time, so that we, so to say, organize internally also the processes to ensure compliance. And also we do a lot of internal work because the EN also gives room to interpretations, and that internally we need to align the interpretations across the teams, which is also sometimes we have diverging opinions, etc., interpretations, etc. So this is sometimes also a challenge, I have to say, how to interpret the standard in a correct way, and then keep documents and decisions, or keep documents of decisions and processes also, that the know-how also and the history is somehow documented in your organization. Obviously, there will be maintenance work, updates needed, etc. So the work will continue, and it would be good for companies to stay involved in this. And also what we did for the TV maker side is we developed also a technical report, 104060, which is a guidance document to explain to to TV makers or CE manufacturers how to apply the EN 301.549. So if various sectors are unsure of the interpretations, we in ETSI, we have a subgroup or task group looking only into the TV related application of the EN, and wrote, so to say, a guideline for industry. And this is how I think companies or also academia can get involved and should be involved in the standardization process, and can also positively influence the features and also the compliance side.
We are getting close to the end of it, so as often we want to know what's next. So how do you see, how is this, this is obviously work in progress. How do you see the next challenges and the next steps you see ahead for accessibility?
So in ETSI, actually, the next development steps for accessibility would be to look into new ICT domains, such as, so let me give you a couple of examples. Artificial intelligence is one of the areas. The accessibility of AI-powered services. Also a topic for future, maybe bias mitigation. And also we need to ensure explainability and control for people with cognitive disabilities. Another area where we would like to focus is virtual and augmented reality. So accessible immersive environments. We will look into also the UIs, so haptics and captioning, spatial audio would be areas where we need to look into more detail in. And then also the accessibility of smart home devices. Voice interfaces is something where we can also look at. So we have really a lot of areas where we in future also need standards for. And we very, so we will not stop after EN 301.549 is published. So we will then also put our resources on those new areas, especially in the field of AI and virtual and augmented reality and IoT and smart environments.
Well, Ulrike, you've taken us through an awful lot of content and the activities that ETSI and your human factors area are looking at. I think what it emphasizes to the world of accessibility and inclusion is that many formally separate areas. You mentioned television, for example. The standards for accessibility on TVs have come on leaps and bounds. It's great to see, but it's still not consistent. The accessibility and collaboration tools like the one we're using today is not consistent. So we've been developing many of these things in isolation. So it's great to hear that you're looking to broaden the reach of what you're looking at, to make sure that we get hopefully a little bit more consistency in the way these things get delivered. And I completely endorse your comments about the cognitive questions about how do we design things to make sure cognitively things are accessible. But you also even touched upon the physical accessibility before, about designing buildings. So when we talk about inclusive design, there are so many elements to this that actually getting people to even understand how all the things relate to each other is a massive challenge. But I think it sounds like with all the work you're doing, you're gradually building momentum, which is great to hear. And then with your own standards and with the European Accessibility Act, that these things are starting to come together. We are getting consensus we're getting more buy-in from countries around the world. I think you're right that there is a general acceptance around the world that we need to build more accessibility into everything that we do, and especially as we move into this AI era or this AI fueled era, and the fact that we need to make every possible interaction touch point for people, because at the end of the day, we need to think about the people. And I think that's something which is really important to keep that human factor in there. So thank you very much for taking the time to look at those questions that we threw out to you there. And thank you for joining us today. Monica, do you want to close us off?
Yes, absolutely. So, Ulrike, thanks a lot. And thank you all in the audience for listening to us and supporting us through this, and spread the word about inclusively. Thank you so much.